Okay, so this video we're going to cover the final detailing for the superstructure. And I want to start out by cutting two little sections of cardboard, 3 millimeters by 2 millimeters. And you're going to glue those to these sections of strut that just come out over the top of the superstructure. And they should be level on top with this section of the superstructure, and just basically follow the line, like the shape of the superstructure up, so they're flush with it. And those are sections of just cardboard cereal box cut 2 millimeters by 3 millimeters, and the 3 millimeters is up and down. Once you have those in place, you're going to want to, now if you have like the thicker pencil leads, like say this is I think 7.5 mils, you can use these. They're actually a little bit better, but I've been using just the 0.5s. If you're using the, I think these are 7.5, but, or 0.75, but I'm not actually positive on that. If you're using the 0.5s, if you're using these ones, use 4 sections. If you're using these ones, use 5 sections, and when you cut them, just cut small parts, and so they don't jump away on you, just put your finger down on the part that you want to keep. And you're going to need 10 of those little sections for each vehicle, 5 for each side. So I like to line them up before placing them. Sometimes you can keep them together when you put them on the vehicle. Doesn't always work, but it does make it a little bit easier for placing them. Just put a little bit of glue right on there. Still one on my brush. There we go. And then I'll use a scraper blade to actually set them in place. So what you want to do is have them flush with the top and flush on one side. Doesn't matter which side you choose, but just make sure they're flush on one side of that overhanging strut bit, so they will look like this when you're done. And when they're dry, I've left this to dry for quite a while, take a piece of cardboard, like cereal box, just as a backing, and place it so you get those pieces of pencil lead right flat against it, and then break them off 1 or 2 at a time. Flush with the side of that overhang. And you should end up with something that looks sort of like that. Any gap, leave at the bottom of this little piece rather than at the top. And that finishes those parts. Now for these, I believe, intake panels, you want to take some drywall fiber tape, that's what this is, and just cut sections out of it with probably 3 is enough of these wide lines and the thin lines. You want the whole length, basically. You should be able to make enough for one vehicle. And just try to stick them together, sticky side to sticky side, but make sure that these thin lines are going to line up perfectly. So yeah, I need to flip it around. It should line them up nicely. Yeah, you see how they line up perfectly? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them on top of each other And I want to make all the thin lines go in exactly the same place, but I want the thick lines offset by 50%, sort of. So you may have to try to get the correct thing a couple of times. And when you've cut out the pieces, it's actually a lot easier to sort of shift them around and finish it to perfection. Once you've got a basic piece like this, you'll have wide lines going this way, or wide spaces going this way, and then very small spaces going the other direction. You want to cut out the pieces, and the reason that we used a little bit of extra so that you can cut away anything that you don't like from the edges. You want 5 wide spaces and 4 small spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cut it here. And when you cut it, try to cut it right along the last line. So you leave none of these little bumps along it. You need 4 spaces up and down. So I still got a little bit of trimming to do at the top. And I can shift it around if I want to make it more perfect. And that is glued to here. Like so. Now generally, depending on the kind of drywall tape you use, it may not match that blue symbol exactly. It probably won't, in fact. Just put it along the bottom and as close to the center of that blue section as you can. Okay, so next we're going to put hinges on the doors on the inside and outside. And this is cue card paper, and I'm just going to cut little squares. This is about 1.5 millimeters wide. So I'm going to cut it into squares, or even marginal rectangles. But squares really do work the best, and then you don't have to worry about which side is which side. You're going to need 8 for each vehicle. I'm really trying to stay out of the way of the camera. I hope you can see everything I'm doing. And once you have 8 little squares, you want to install those on the obvious blue symbols. And what I do is I have about half of it overhanging the edge. And I'll just leave it overhanging for now, and then once they're dry in place, I'll like use a round toothpick to just bend them over, because the doors are a little bit out from the main superstructure. It does make them look a little bit better if they're bent over. It's good practice to kind of press them onto the door. Otherwise, sometimes they sit sort of angled. It doesn't quite look as nice when you press them into place. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing in here, and I can maintain also my vision of what's happening. So same thing exactly on the inside. Overhang them by half, press them into place when they're dry.